So I'm going to be facilitating a conversation with a fabulous group of people, and they're going to be helping me unpack this one. See what I did there? So it shouldn't be as hard-hitting as what I've come to get used to, but it sure will be addressing something that's interesting, insightful, and informative, because the 4 Ps of marketing are at the heart of what we all do in our areas of speciality or creative fields. Please do let me know if you struggle to hear me, just as I get this mic in place. How do you navigate through these key elements of your business? Whether you're a small business owner or a freelancer, an artist or an administrator, when your audience lives online. So let me invite my panel members. First up, all the way from South Africa, we have Sam Marshall, the MD of socialtv.co.za, a familiar TV news face to South Africans, having worked for the SABC, ETV, including many mainstream radio stations. He's now the MD of socialtv.co.za, a CSI, CSR, and shared value news platform that covers and develops stories focused on CSI, CSR, social impact, and shared value. Sam is also the founder of brandlive.co.za, an online radio station and podcast. Sam, it is good to see you. Welcome.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good.
Awesome.
Long time no see.
Yeah, we're also Twitter friends. Right?
Yeah.
I follow you on Twitter.
Maybe LinkedIn.
And LinkedIn as well. Yeah.
When someone says I follow you guys, they're stalking you. They are stalking
I'm
you.
stalking you.
Yes,
Yeah.
thanks. I stalk you too. All right, the next panelist we have is Mpumi Phillips, Director of Distribution from The Orchard. Mpumi is a very well-established music industry expert, having worked for Sheer Publishing, worked as a label manager for Ghetto Rough. Mpumi now manages the digital distribution company owned by Sony Music. She has also served as a member of the RISA Steering Committee. Mpumi has published articles regarding music clearance and music supervisory. Let's give her a big round of applause. Welcome, Mpumi. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Yourself?
I'm struggling with my microphone. So for now, I'm going to hold my microphone like this. Next up, joining us online, we have Anyiko Owoko, who is the founder and MD of Anyiko PR. With more than a decade of experience in the media and music industry, she has a knack for promoting artists. Coupled with a broad network and diverse work experience, she is one of Africa's most influential women in the music business. The multi-award-winning entrepreneur and blogger is known to be East Africa's leading entertainment and music publicist. We are so grateful to have you, Anyiko, all the way from Kenya. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Let's give her a round of applause.
To be here.
How are you doing, Anyiko?
Thank you. I'm doing quite well. It's a beautiful day. It's a great conversation. I'm honored to be among all you great people in this fantastic conference. Thank you for having me.
And finally, representing SEAfrica's co-host country, Botswana, we have Obakeng Kokwe, the founder of EBW magazine. He's also a chief technology partner at Sturgeon Digital. Obakeng is a highly charged technology and new media professional with huge experience in brand activations, music management, music production, and events organization. Obakeng Kokwe is focused on building the next generation media company and has an ambition of transforming the world of new media. And I'd love to hear all about that. Obakeng, welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here, and hello to everybody.
All right, all of us are here, and I'm going to start with you, Obakeng. The 4 Ps of marketing, please put them into perspective for us in line with EBW magazine and what you're doing there.
Cool. Thank you for the platform once again, and for the opportunity to talk to you about some of that we're doing out here. So EBW Magazine is a startup media company mainly focused on the entertainment domain. Also trying to build a platform that can connect brands with the new media audiences, specifically those that are big fans of music. So music is a big part of our motivation for building the platform. In terms of the 4 Ps of marketing, obviously where we started off is around building the product itself. When we saw the opportunity around the digital and what was happening, in the first really blocks of building EBW was around 2010, 11, 12, where I was working for a record label that I founded with a partner of mine. And we saw that a lot of the people that wanted to consume our music were struggling to connect with it. If you recall, sort of the Facebook SoundCloud boom was around 07, 08, 09. And so this was sort of like 5 years after social was really taken off in Southern Africa, Botswana. And we wanted to take advantage of that opportunity, but also build a platform or a product that allows Botswana music to be indexable when people search online. Because unlike bigger markets, we literally had no space that belonged to Botswana that cataloged music where you could go and you could search and find history on whoever, an artist that comes from Botswana, and try to see what they've done in the past, because that did not exist unless you followed radio, and a lot of it was on terrestrial, and TV in Botswana is still relatively on the come up. So we took a deliberate decision to build EBW as a digital platform, built a website. That was the first thing that we did. Worked a lot with the record labels in the market, worked a lot with the indie artists, built an app in partnership with Itumeleng Harabatsabe, who's a well-known app developer in Botswana. And once that had been or sort of taken shape, we started to think about how do we get this out? And a lot of what we had to do was sort of exploit the grassroots relationships that we had in a market as small as Botswana. So it meant a lot of calls, connecting with people on social. At the time, SoundCloud was still actually embedded as part of Facebook. I don't know how many people remember or know this. So it was kind of easy to sort of catalog this music and still make it accessible to like a social audience. These were the early days. We've had to rethink the product as social has taken more prominence. In other markets, you have YouTube Music, you have Instagram Music, you have TikTok Music. We still don't have any of that in the Botswana market. So finding a way to navigate all these tools that we see outside that our artists sort of want to be part of, and bringing it back to our domain is something that we're still trying to work through. I saw one of the sessions earlier on where they said Google grants are available to markets like Botswana, but we really struggle. Ask any YouTuber. In fact, William last has moved to SA maybe for the opportunity to monetize his huge YouTube audience. There's no direct way of monetizing such an audience in Botswana. So it puts limits on not just what you create, the music as well, in promotion. You're not necessarily earning hugely from it. So in terms of how we've built a product, the next step was to think about, okay, the pricing. What is it that we offer as a product? That started really as an idea just to catalog music. And we had to think about it as a media brand, not just a catalog of content from Botswana. So this is where now we started to think about EBW, still very much in its foundation stages, but we're building relationships with a lot of marketers, marketing agencies, music publishers, music managers, and that sort of thing, because we're trying to show a synergy between the kind of product that people really love and listen to on a daily basis, and the connection with an audience that marketers are trying to advertise to, purely because that's one of the most basic ways in which you can monetize a media platform. There's other ways, there's branding, there's going into social. Those are things that we're experimenting with as we're going. There's collaborations with musicians and trying to build synergy so we can both make money. Because the motivation, although we started, like I said, with just this idea of building a platform, we have to find a way to sustain it outside of the traditional media income streams. So these are things that we're still sort of playing around with, product and promotion. How do we place it in the right spaces? What are the right spaces in a market like this one, which is still very much traditional, even though a lot of the people have skipped the desktop space. I could go on and on. There's a number of things. I know I'm sort of like touching on this and that, but these are all things that are connecting, that have really forced us to birth EBW magazine as a platform. Yeah.
So where would you say the biggest opportunity to nurture audiences online for entrepreneurs that work with artists is?
It's you'd have to say social is where the biggest opportunity is. When you say creative entrepreneurs, you have to look at what it is that they're selling, what they're putting out into the market that they're looking to monetize. And for us, and the people that we work with, that we profile, we know that their biggest audience is on social. And obviously, these are not just virtual beings, they live in the real world. So a big part of the role that social plays is in sort of like bridging the gap, breaking barriers, making sure people get more familiar with the artist or the creator or the product, and that the artist also has to be very conscious in the way that they're going to exploit that and place the product and create an opportunity to be able to convert that into either streams or shows, using digital as a sort of taste-making platform, give people a sample of what it is that you can do, so that if you're asking them to come out to a show or buy your book or buy a CD or even patronize a YouTube channel like yours, there's a real reason and connection between you and them as an audience. They actually see that there's value that I get back, because at the end of the day, all that we're able to trade off of is value. And if you're able to demonstrate it and people are able to connect with it, then you have something that you can monetize.
So what is the relationship then between the 4 Ps, but specifically price and promotion on digital platforms?
It's huge. I mean, when we talk about price, one of the first things you have to think about is, valuation, value yourself as a product. That's the first thing that we have to start with. How much work goes into creating the product? How much work goes into maintaining the...
Okay, I think we've just got Obakeng frozen there. Obakeng, can you hear us? Okay, Obakeng, we're going to come back to you. Let's see if we can get that connection together. Obakeng, can you hear us?
I can now. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. So just to wrap up what it was that you were saying, because we lost you for a little bit there.
Yeah, so the question was the relationship between pricing and promotion. And really that speaks to the value that you're promoting and the value that you're pricing. And so obviously...
Okay, we're going to pause it there, Obakeng, if you can hear us, because we are losing you. I'm going to jump to you, Sam, and we will come back to Obakeng. Talk about access to media as a means. Obakeng, if you can hear us, we're going to come back to you. Let's just see if we can solve your network issue on that side, because we're struggling to hear you. And I'm going to jump to Sam. So talk to me, Sam, or talk to us rather, about access to media as a means for promotion and audience development.
Yeah, so I just want to add one thing about pricing and promotion, and I think it's a bit of a misnomer. If you're starting out, pricing isn't part of your first piece anyway. You're really just thinking about quality. And quality, by the way, I loved what you said earlier, but the truth of the reality is YouTube has moved on. The days of the cat videos and poor quality is gone. If you switch on YouTube now, it's high-end value production. And the reality is, I love a lot of the stuff that you're saying, but if you are operating and thinking, I can shoot something with my cell phone and put it out poorly, I'm sorry, your audiences are highly educated, their palate is highly developed, and they are, remember, YouTube is the biggest content wilderness in the world. People are dumping content on YouTube every second. as you're flipping through your lips or scratching your forehead, somebody's busy uploading content on YouTube, and it's getting better and better. Samsung itself has just released a 8K video phone camera that tells you where the world is at in terms of content production. And I love what you said also about timing. Timing is such a critical thing. Sometimes we can copy really well. I mean, the key around innovation is not sometimes being the first, but it's also copying incredibly well. So if you can innovate around those things, you might find that Beyonce is well known for a particular style of singing, but then Chloe reinvents Beyonce at the AMAs, and all of a sudden Beyonce has got another kick as a mule in terms of career. But everybody says Chloe sounds like Beyonce, but we can't wait till she sounds like Chloe. So innovation, pricing at the beginning of your project, it's got nothing to do with it. It's beautiful somewhere in the plan to have some kind of idea of what this will be worth, but it means absolutely nothing if you don't engage with the market. The market is actually the best determiner of what your product will cost. Because if you walk in, I can tell you for free how many people that walk into my office and say, well, this is my value, and I go, okay, so break down that value structure. Oh, I've shot 6 music videos, and therefore I'm worth 25,000 Rand a month. Sorry, buddy. It's not the way the world works. There's an ideological idea of what you think should happen, and then there's the real world. And I love what you said. You cooked. You got timing was perfect. You got a whole bunch of people that filmed for free. Also, the other thing that we don't talk about is luck. You were also lucky. You know, and luck, and Gary Player says the harder you work, the luckier you get.
But I have to clarify, and maybe I didn't sell this. The moment the show got picked up and got money, everybody got paid.
100%.
So they invested their heart, but you are right about the luck.
I love that.
You are right about the luck.
The investment part is such a critical part, because investment thing you won't quantify. I started a news platform 9 years ago, and now we employ journalists across the country. We operate out of different countries. We are focused on something that's incredibly niche. It's corporate social investment, corporate social responsibility, shared value, and social impact. 9 years ago, this was a trickle of a conversation. Now, it's obviously built into your framework. It's that 1%. But what's happening today is about social impact, corporate social investment. Every brand that is here has got some kind of social outreach program. So when I started my business, pricing wasn't even on the table. I never thought about pricing. I came from an experience as a journalist, saw a gap in the industry, and then even though I did Morning Live, was the breakfast host on ETV, did a hell of a lot of TV and radio, it still meant absolutely nothing. Because I was now moving into a different space. Owning a news platform, just because I was on TV, didn't mean I was qualified to run a news platform. And so it's only 9 years later that we've got journalists that it took me 9 years to get a salary. 9 years to get a salary.
Are you still poor?
I'm emotionally rich. I am emotionally rich.
It's important that you mention this, because the reality is, I continue doing other things
100%.
that can fund what was then a passion project. So even for you, it's so critical that we know, as creatives, you cannot start in thinking, as you said, this is my worth. It's good that you know your worth, but you also got to be realistic about where you are.
100.
The fact that I came in as a well-known person, starting from scratch on YouTube, it meant nothing that I had been on television or radio. Nobody cared to reiterate what you were saying, that nobody cared that you'd been a news broadcaster. Yeah, completely.
And you've got to prove yourself every day still, because nobody wants to be known as a one-trick pony. And for me, I'll tell you straight up, to Ralebagile's point, it's the same with artists. I did Morning Live for years. An artist does one interview and think they're made. The interview is the first small journey. And here's the other thing, the other big misnomer. It's not a record company. Of course, record companies, they're businesses. But you know how much a record company loves an artist that's hardworking? Even more. Am I right? And so these are the realities that you face right at the beginning. So just to come to pricing, promotion. Let me just talk about promotion. Nothing happens in the virtual that doesn't happen in reality. It is even harder to meet people online than to go and meet people. You can walk up to somebody right now and introduce yourself. Do you know how difficult that is in a webinar or online? It's practically impossible. So whatever you do, you have to be out and about, be part of webinars. And this is the funny thing about life. If you ask 10 people something, somebody will respond. It's as simple as that. But you've got to be willing to go to 10 people, 15 people, 20 people, 30 people. You've got to be willing to pick up the phone, make the phone call. The reason why email marketing is still the most powerful tool in the world today is because you still have to connect to people. YouTube is not going to bring you subscribers on their own. You need a whole bunch of things for YouTube, automatically for you to get where Mr. Beast is, where you've got 65 million subscribers. But what does Mr. Beast give away? They had 40 million subscribers, so he gave away 40 cars in 24 hours. None of us can give away 40 cars in 24 hours. But what we do have access to is a ton of events. You know, I once told my friend when I was a journalist that if I schedule all my events for the week, I would never have to buy food for an entire week. There's so many events. We're just lazy. If you can go and find out, if you are in construction, do you know how many construction events there are from your point systems to meet and greets to online events? There's a ton, even in entertainment. Today is an event.
Does that now speak to audience development as well?
Yeah, it talks to promotion, audience development, but for me, audience development only comes after, to your point, when you've got quality content. Or you need something else, which record labels don't want to talk about. You've got to be a fad. And a fad only lasts for so long. You've got to put out a song at that moment when everybody wants to hear that kind of song. But unfortunately, that only happens once. You know, Gote had somebody I used to know. Can't produce another somebody I used to know. He's a one-hit wonder. There are many one-hit wonders. So you've got to really think, if you are lucky in that regard, great for you. But if you're not, you've got to work at it. You still unfortunately have to put on your satchel every morning. You've got to sit down with the people that know. You've got to find a mentor. You've got to get into the industry. You've got to be willing to work for next to nothing. These are the fundamentals of every living person that you see today. Volunteered their time, engaged with somebody. And you can't get away from that. And I'm sorry, I don't care how virtual we become or how digitally connected we are or how digitally native you are. If you have the inability to connect with people and sell yourself, you're gone.
So speaking then of connection, what has happened with digital media from your perspective in terms of developing the relationship between creatives and media?
So you know what, this is quite an interesting thing. So the Relebogiles of the world is a new phenomenon that America has already had for a very long time. Ellen owns her own show, right? Her name is attached to it. The fact that you hear Relebogile is also the executive producer of a show is quite unique.
It's very rare.
It's very rare. So what happened a week ago was something else that has never happened in this country also, which is completely mind-blowing. Robert Marawa, who left both SuperSport and SABC, penned a 3-media platform deal, which is the first in the country. He's got Sowetan Live, he's got Rise FM, and he's got another platform to do his sports show after SABC canned him or he left. That is also unusual. So this idea that...
And can I just say what's critical? Is that he was able to turn what was this so-called embarrassing, been fired moment into something. I had to turn what was a so-called embarrassing moment for me, leaving Metro FM where I was not feeling creatively fulfilled, to have this happen. If I hadn't left what people see as the biggest commercial radio station in the country, I wouldn't be where I am. If Robert had not left SABC, would he have penned that deal? Definitely not.
Wouldn't. And also what happens, somebody mentioned Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan signed a $100 million deal with Spotify. These things are happening, and they happen because people are incredibly hardworking. It's not, I know Relebogile Mabotja is a name, but in the industry that she's in, she's not a name. There are a lot more successful executive producers that have multiple shows bigger than hers. So she's got to work every day. I love the fact that you love YouTube. So what is this gap? There isn't a gap. You can own your own platform. You can start developing your content now. You can collaborate with 6, 7, 8 people. You can have an ownership agreement on paper that you can copy off YouTube and off Google. There's ownership agreements. If you Google partnership template, you can start a news platform tomorrow. The difference is it's going to take you time, it's going to take your money, and then the other final thing, I don't want to dominate the conversation, but the other thing that I want to say is that I learned early on that I wasn't interested in audiences. When I started my news platform, I did not care about the audience. I cared about the industry I was serving because there was a gap. Only now, 9 years later, do I care about the viewership. But for me, and I'll just tell you quickly how I went about it.
And can we clarify, when you say I don't care about audiences, you're not saying I don't care about people. You're saying you're not driven by the number of eyes on your product.
So, you know, let me to clarify this. Obviously, I care about people.
Yes.
I mean, we only do people business. But I didn't care whether I had 100 views or not. The industry that I was in at the time didn't really have a news structure. We didn't send reporters to corporate social investment stories. We would go into an event and there would be a sports journalist, a business journalist, but there wouldn't be a CSI journalist. And so we found a gap in a niche. Every record company's got CSI programs. You can ask ask Mpumi how many CSI journalists call her a day to ask about their corporate social investment programs. Nobody. So we found a gap quite early, and so for me it was more important to build a platform that the CSI guys would respect before I went after the audience. Because when I started my business, I couldn't get a single press release. Not one. Now we get 185 a day. And 185, that's 185 businesses from F&B, Vodacom, MTN, they all email us every day. So what happens? They email us. Now we send out our journalists, and because of that engagement, I'm now able to upsell. So we send out a journalist, would you like the footage? We sometimes the only news crew in that room, so we can sell the corporate the footage. So you have to find innovative ways to turn a revenue once you find your gap. So.
Mpumi, on your side, let's talk music distribution, which would be the place in P. How has it changed over the years, and do you think it's to the advantage or the disadvantage of the creative in terms of audience development with where we are in digital media?
I think it depends on who you are and where you are, whether it's an advantage or a disadvantage. Because obviously within Africa, I still find us having moved from the physical form to the digital form a disadvantage. Simply because we can't afford data. You know, it is an advantage in terms of, I believe that it has been able to, now there isn't a waiting period. You know, I remember when I was a kid, you'd have to wait 2 months before you got the next, you know, Michael Jackson single.
Yes.
You know, now you have to drop at the same time because we all have access to it at the same time.
Literally, my producers in studio, as they're done, they upload and it's there.
Exactly, you know, and that allows us to now compete in a global stage versus to compete just in our little circle. And this is now allowed for us and our music to be able to travel faster and wider. So those are the advantages of, you know, moving into a digital platform. The problem then becomes, you know, I had a conversation with a former colleague of mine where, you know, when I used to work at Get a Raffle, we'd release a Zola CD. I'd go into a shop in, you know, in the rural KZN, and the man has got like 7 Zola CDs, the same CD. I'm like, why are you buying so many? No. One for me, one for mama, one for the kids. So now those people don't have that data access. Because remember, with data, we're competing with bread. You know, the price of bread. We're competing, you know, with
transport.
What is our necessities? Transport, a taxi. So, am I going to go and buy, you know, a subscription service, or am I going to go and buy bread for the week? You know, or is the airtime going to finish that quickly? You know, so all those things are a disadvantage to us as Africans in terms of being able to consume, but it's an advantage in order for us to be able to export.
And I think it's critical you mentioned that, because access is important, and we cannot just live in this, I call it the Twitter bubble, where everybody thinks what's trending on Twitter is what's happening in the rest of the country, whereas we're still a minority percentage. Even for us speaking about digital media, we are the smaller percentage of the country that is operating at this level. Everybody else is still, analog, waiting to tune into SABC to watch their shows. So now, Mpumi, in terms of music and film, the film distribution landscape in Africa changing with the times from an ownership POV, I mean, we've already touched on the conversation of ownership. How's that looking on your side?
I mean, for me, there's still a huge gap there. I think now ownership has moved from, the traditional broadcasters of, MultiChoice or SABC, and the ownership is now Netflix.
Yeah.
They're licensing less, commissioning more. And commissioning means they own it. So productions and production companies still are at the same position in terms of ownership. It's just that there's a new dad in town, or there's a new parent.
A new sugar dad.
In terms of who's now owns it.
Yeah.
And it's still a very, very long way for us to be able to own our own content.
And the challenge, of course, is to create the content, you need the money, and for as long as somebody's willing to pay for it. And this is the challenge, is if a person says, I want to go get funding, do you understand that funding means you are giving up your IP? I think so many people are not even aware that when the SABC commissions a show, you sign on the contract to say, I'm submitting this, but you must pay to do it. But it doesn't belong to you anymore, it belongs to them. Next year they can say, thanks for the idea, we're moving on to another company. So it's very difficult to be in a position to own, hence you've got to look at more than just funding in terms of money. Bumi, could the introduction of local quota on video streaming services be the solution for local film producers, and what could the solution then be for music, considering the streaming royalties problems?
I think when it was still in the sense of like traditional radio was key, and analog TV was key, it meant something. We needed that quota in order for a lot more people to have access to those opportunities, because we were still competing with international superstars in terms of our of radio playing our music, TV playing our music. But now that we're in the digital space, I can choose what I want to hear. I don't necessarily have to listen to a radio station that's going to play 10 tracks that I don't like, and then just to hear one track that I like. So now it's more about, we go back to the audience development.
Yes.
Where you have a platform where you can put your music everywhere, but then how does your audience get to you? Because honestly now, with the DSPs and everything, I swear there's certain genres of music, because of my personal taste, I don't think I've listened to in like probably a year. Because now the power is in my hands. But now the problem lies in the fact that, how do I know that within the genre I like, or who's new, who's out there? That's where the audience development needs to now come in. To like, let me know that you're here and you're at this platform so I can check you out.
Anyiko, I'm going to be coming to you now. How does the work of an entertainment publicist assist in audience development in these digital times? And do you think it's become easier or more difficult? Is Anyiko still there? Okay, Anyiko is frozen. Okay, can you start again, Anyiko? We did not get the beginning part of you speaking. Is Anyiko there? Okay, while we try to get Anyiko, Obakeng, are you still with us?
Yes, I am. I don't know if it's better if I drop video, because I might maybe have to.
Okay, I see we've got Anyiko back. Anyiko, Can you hear us? Okay, Anyiko, maybe just check and your audio. We can't seem to have your mic come through. Let's come back to you, Obakeng.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Okay, we can hear you, Obakeng. Let me jump to another question for you. Do we see an emergence of new jobs in the industry, and I'm talking your industry specifically, as a result of digital, and which jobs of the future do you foresee?
Speaking specific to our market, there certainly is an emergence of. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, just needed to confirm. There certainly is an emergence of an industry. Media itself in Botswana is still very foundational. But with sort of the proliferation of media and everybody trying to go online, and all this sort of readjustment of talent and training in the market, there's a specific need to employ people with skills around building media platforms, around helping brands meet the needs of their communication needs, including even in spaces such as connecting to those that the gentleman who does CSR specific content. All this is very new in the market. There's a need for agency talent, marketing, advertising, writers. But what's happening realistically is that there are no jobs in the market. The economy has suffered. All these things that we're talking about are really around, individuals trying to push and build platforms with the hope that in the future they're able to monetize. A lot of people are still not able to, get to the kind of arrangements that allowed you Relebogile to get their show. They cannot even get a camera crew. You're talking about maybe just shoot it from the phone. I think the conversation has made it clear that the audiences now are so much quality. And so there's a lot of constraints around in the market. Just yesterday in Botswana, someone was talking about the quality of music that we're receiving.
Obakeng?
Versus quality in terms of, mastering, mixing, and all these things. Which people have done really well to develop the product to a certain extent, but we don't have your AMPD studio that I can walk into book session with a professional engineer, record a song properly, and right up the alley, I can go talk to a publisher and be able to maybe explore the square where all these media houses are located. This is not the reality of the market here. This is not to say that people are not working. I know so many individuals that are building their own little PR companies, IP companies, consultancies, trying to get into TV. But what needs to break the mold and drop the dependency on the traditional way of doing things, which is built around the government centricity in the market. You guys are lucky you have your multi-choice, your other entities that are, if Netflix, we look to buy shows from the market. Unfortunately, here, and we're seeing quite a bit of talent actually decide to move to that side. Impossibina as an example, William Lust is an example, Visoview, and that they're chasing the opportunity and where they think they could possibly monetize their talent, because simply basing it on the fact that you're doing the work and you're going to be able to get paid has not proved to be the case. So there's quite a bit of work to be done. There is talent available. The Botswana government has just now mandated the Arts Council, and we're hoping that that'll contribute positively in the development of these structures that can help people live off of their talents. Yeah.
All right, Anyiko, let's see if we can get you back again. Anyiko, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, wonderful. We are sorted out. So the question that I was asking is, how does the work of an entertainment publicist assist in audience development in these digital times?
So I think we're talking about the 4 P's of marketing. So we're talking about either a product or a brand. We're talking about either price or the brand value. You could also look at it as the value of the media space or the value of actually buying the media. And if you're on the media, then what sort of value do you get as a brand or as a creative? Because we predominantly work with many creatives. So talking about places, we are talking about different markets. You know, how things work in Africa is very different from Europe or America or other markets. And even how things work in different countries in Africa is totally different. I think there's always a perception that because, say, we're in East Africa, everything runs the same, but actually we don't even all talk the same language. You know, some people speak English, some speak Swahili more than others. And so depending on the product, depending on the brand, depending on what you're marketing, you really have to make this market specific, audience specific as well. And when it comes to promotion, I think we pretty much know what promotion is about, but I like what my counterparts have talked about today. It's all about the content you're creating, the quality of the content. And I also want to say something very important, that promotion is something that never really stops. I think the job of a publicist is to always bring in I would say to show the client, to show the business, to show the brand, what's the point of continuous promotion? Why do we need to do this promotion again? We already did it last week or last month or last year, and you have to keep providing this value. And I think that's where many entertainment publicists or publicists in general are failing, because the brands start to feel like, okay, we've invested so much in PR and as a publicist, and we don't see the results. But the thing is, with the PR and marketing, I always say it's a long, strenuous road. You need a lot of experience. You need a lot of building of brand to build brand affiliation. You don't just wake up one day and are like, oh, I'm the biggest company, I'm the biggest brand, I'm the biggest artist, and I need to be paid this amount of money, or expect to be running a business and it's super successful.
All right, it seems, Anyiko, we're just losing you. So can you just repeat your last sentence? Can you just repeat your last sentence for us, as we were losing you?
Try to bring. The last statement I was saying is that the job of a publicist predominantly is to string along all these 4 P's of marketing. There has to be a way that they are connecting, and you have to show this over to your.
Okay, network is unfortunately a problem.
Sorry, can I just add something?
Yes, go ahead.
The other thing also, I think, which is very, very important, which everybody here and watching is very important. I don't know if you know, but Morning Live every weekend takes artists. I don't know if you know that America's got more than 15,000 radio stations that go through the category. There are more than a couple of thousand media outlets in South Africa through community. So you've got access to thousands and thousands of platforms, and all you need to do is be able to put a press release together, number one. I don't know if you know that radio stations allow you to submit your music, some of them online. So there are just so many ways of getting out your content, and you talked about how you develop audiences. Media completely understand what the landscape looks like. It was unheard of in my time for us to take Skype phone calls, but we do. Morning Live on the weekend now is predominantly, the overwhelming majority of it is via either Twitter, Facebook, online. And I think artists not only here but around the world showed us what could happen during the pandemic. They all did shows online, and guess what it did? If you told me a couple of years ago, where's your business? And I said, it's from my lounge, I would have never taken you as a serious business person. Now everybody works from home. Yeah. So the landscape is now completely perfect for you to game change the way you operate. And also, you know how many, by the way, the barrier to get your music onto community radio stations or get your content onto developing platforms is considerably lower. Rise, I think they're in Mpumalanga's community TV platform. They take free content producers. If you put content out and you are willing to make 29,000 phone calls, you can get your show onto Rise. So there are so many platforms. We haven't talked about syndication. We haven't talked about, for example, approaching this amazing business person and saying, I've got a kick-ass show that's perfect for your YouTube platform. She cares about audience development. She wants audience. So if you're sitting with an amazing show, Rele Bokhile, and I'm putting on the spot, could be your executive producer on your next show. So how you look at your development is really about what do you know. My brother, who's the breakfast host of Smile FM in Cape Town, says our biggest argument, our biggest challenge is we don't know what we don't know. So you've got to go and find out. But people like Rele Bokhile with 100,000 subscribers, if you've got a kick-ass show and you can get hold of her, pitch her, and her barrier to get your show onto hers is considerably less than the SABC's. So just think out of the box in terms of how you develop your audience. It might not be your own platform, it might be another platform.
Anyiko, we're going to try you one more time for one more question. Are you there? Can you hear us fine? Is Anyiko there? Okay, we seem to be, these are the challenges, of course, of living in Africa, is we do not have the best network, and oh, there we go, we've got you back. Okay, Anyiko, we're going to try you one more time. How do you conceptualize a digital marketing strategy, and what is effective currently? And maybe you can give us an example.
Okay, I think that a digital marketing strategy has to be true to the brand, its values, and to the reach that it aspires. When we talk about the digital space, we're talking about a vast space, and we're talking about the ability to reach, audiences farther than our geographical boundaries. So when you're talking about a digital sort of marketing strategy, you're looking at how far do you want the brand to reach, or who exactly is your target audience. So I think when it comes to that, it's important to look at which brand are you representing, or brand are we talking about, and who's the key audience, who do you want to reach out to, and then the messaging has to be very specific to that individual. If it is a brand that is maybe speaking to women, it really has to speak to
Let's see if we can get Anyiko.
And then hopefully other people are going to relate to that. So I think when you get who the audience speak to them, this has not just about targeting the right audience with the right message, but it's about making it catchy, interesting.
Okay, Anyiko, we are absolutely struggling on our end to hear what you have to say, just in terms of the tail end of your thoughts. So I'm going to start to wrap it up. Obakeng, do you have any final words on your side? Obakeng, Anyiko, I'm going to come back and try and do a wrap up with you. Obakeng, final words.
Yeah, if you can hear me, I think mine would be around. It was interesting the question you asked, the role of a publicist in the new media age, and mine would be, obviously there needs to be an alignment of your strategy as a creative, and giving people a reason to believe, and working with the right channels, be it a digital publication like ourselves, be it television, be it radio, and obviously focusing on your audience and continuing to cultivate that relationship giving them that reason to believe, because at the end of the day, that's what they buy into. And it goes without saying that digital is a big part of that. In our market, as much as, yes, digital has not taken off hugely, Botswana has one of the biggest digital penetrations in the world. In fact, it's like of the 2.4 million, 1 million plus people are online, mostly on mobile. So when you look at your marketing strategy, digital, mobile has to come first. It literally is the one place where people are going. Traditional channels are also mixing it up and making sure that they're catering for that audience as well. But all that said, it continues to be important for creatives to build a good quality product that people can believe in and buy into. And hopefully, at the end of the day, a little bit of what we shared has been valuable to some of the audiences. And we hope to be doing this in person next year. Thank you.
So much, Obakeng from Botswana. Anyiko, let's try again in 3 sentences, just because we keep losing you. Final thoughts.
I think the final thoughts for me is as publicists or as publicists and as PR professionals, we have to look at what we promote. We have to look at the value that comes off of it. We shouldn't only be tied to the content, the quality of it, and the promotion, and forget about what happens after that. So what happens after that is the brand actually becomes known or not, but then there needs to be opportunities presented to the brand for the brand value to then be able to pay off that brand, and for creatives to actually make money from the time they spend and from the investment they make into the PR. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anyiko. Sam, final words on your side?
I love what everybody has been saying. Get started. Very, very important. If you haven't started, get started. If you are currently in it, do better. Because you have to keep on pushing yourself, or else by the time you wake up, everybody's ahead of you. Number 3, don't be scared for partnerships. It means absolutely nothing if you are sitting in a room and your content is not getting out. You might find that you're a fantastic creative, but your friend is fantastic at selling. Employ your friend to become a partner and go and sell for you. And also the third critical thing is, please do not be scared to spend money on yourself. A lot of people don't like spending money on themselves. That means that you might have to spend, for example, as little as 50 Rand promoting your page on Facebook, so more and more people can see it. That's 50 Rand that you're spending on your own investment. And every time you go and sit in a restaurant while you are a startup, creative, business, whatever, and you're blowing 800 Rand on a meal, you are literally shooting your business in the foot. So take the money, spend it on yourself, and what you don't know, YouTube is the university of life. You can actually Google, how do I clean my cat's butt, and there's a video. So you can find a video on anything. Don't be scared, make the mistakes, but become smarter off the mistakes.
Thank you, Sam. Bumi?
The one thing that I would say that was positive about COVID was that it woke us up as Africans to understand that the digital world is here and we need to quickly get on board. As an artist, you have not been able to do gigs, you have not been able to do proper interviews, you have not been able to do in-store promotions, you have not been able to interact with your audience. Social media has now become a way for you to develop your artists and to interact. So if you are having a social media account and all you're doing on there is, posting how to clean your cat's bum, instead of showcasing your music or interacting with your fans, then you're not developing it. A lot of the times, internationally, YouTube is actually a non-factor. YouTube is still a huge phenomenon in Africa, but we're still so far behind when it comes to YouTube. How does someone have 5 million views on a video but 10,000 subscribers? You cannot, how do you now move those views to subscription? A lot of the times when we're talking to people about our artists, they don't want to know how many views they have, because if you have 5 million views and 10,000 subscribers, that means whatever that was a passing thing. You don't have, you're not developing your audience to be sustainable. So you need to figure out, how do I convert these 5 million people who viewed my video into a sustainable audience that will continue to come back and subscribe, you know? And that comes back into, YouTube is just not a platform where you put music in or videos on. YouTube is a social media platform for you to interact with your audience. So you need to figure out ways of, how do I interact? How do I make, like we go back to what Sam is saying, how do I make my content, you know, to a point where my audience wants to continue to keep coming back? Actually, I want my audience to want to set reminders when I have new content, and that's what the subscription is about. So if your audience is not subscribing, then that means they don't really care. They don't want to know what else you're doing. You need to learn how to interact with that audience in order to now be able to get those numbers up. Gain your audience in the best way you can. Social media works.
I think the biggest thing is, if I can add my closing thoughts, there comes a once in a lifetime phenomenon like a Master KG, who's sitting on, I don't know, I'm sure he's exceeded the 500 million views for Jerusalem. And that once in a lifetime, when that moment happens, what he has been able to do with it, collaborate with David Guetta, go all over the world and do what he's doing. And it's not to say going viral is not something that can happen to you. It can literally happen to anybody at any time. Yeah, and the question is, what do you do about it once you've gone viral? How do you turn that into an audience that will invest in what you have to offer and buy into that? Thank you so much to all of the panelists that are speaking about the 4 Ps of marketing. Sam Marshall from South Africa, Anyiko Owoko from Kenya, Obaken Kokwe from Botswana, and Mpumi Phillips from South Africa. Please, can we give them all a round of applause?